Indeed, the drama gets a little more interesting as the elections approach in Anambra. November 8 is the day that they have been scheduled to hold, and it was saying that the political parties maybe are not quite ready, or maybe there is just a lot of political tussle going on. What is happening, particularly in APGA? Yes, we've seen what is happening in the PDP. You've seen snippets of what is happening in APGA. It was seen that their candidate has not yet been listed by INEC, or not the candidate which they had expected to be listed is not who has been listed. But we get a little more insight right now with Senator Victor Umeh, who is a former national chairman of APGA. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome, viewers.
From the last time you were here, I think by that time the name of your candidate, we were expecting the name to be published as the duly nominated candidate of the All Progressive People's Grand Alliance, and it was seen that that hasn't quite happened. Walk us through all that has been happening in the party, because I'm sure right now people are wondering what is happening. Why does it seem like as if there is rancor in APGA's within APGA's ranks, and what exactly is going to be the fate of the party ahead of the November elections?
Well, thank you, Makbe. You recalled correctly that on the 25th of June, I was on this studio where I appeared with the INEC National Commissioner for Information and Voter Education, Barrister Festus Okoye. You also recall that during that program, you put a question to him. Who are the recognized leaders of APGA as in national chairman and national secretary? And he answered without equivocation and pointedly that the national chairman of APGA is Victor Oye, and the national secretary of APGA is Labram Mako. He didn't mince words in stating it clearly. And that he also said that there are no factions in APGA to the knowledge of the Independent National Electoral Commission. He went further to also state that during the uploading of nominations, that they will give access code to INEC portal to the Chief Victor Oye-led APGA for them to upload the nominated candidate of APGA in that election. He said all these things on the 25th of June, and they didn't just stop there. At the time they were issuing this access code to political parties to upload their candidates, they gave us the access code to Chief Victor Oye-led APGA. And the party complied with the way INEC directed them to submit their candidates. The name of Professor Chukwu Soludo was uploaded to INEC as the duly nominated candidate of APGA. INEC accepted it. And they went further to submit hard copies of his particulars and that of his deputy. INEC accepted them and acknowledged them. So we're waiting for the publication, as I said, which they ought to do by Section 31(3), which has been repeatedly said of the Electoral Act. They should do that within 7 days. They did this on the 2nd of July, so it was expected that by 9th of July, INEC would publish the particulars. Let me not make a heavy weather of this, because they published on the 16th of July for all political parties. So it wasn't a case of APGA being left behind. But the question today should be, why did INEC abandon the leadership of APGA, which they correctly have been dealing with for the past 2 years? On the 15th of July, the INEC said they received a court order made by Jigawa State High Court that sat in Birnin Kudu, that compelled INEC to recognize Judo Keke as the acting national chairman of APGA and to receive the candidate of APGA for that election from him. So one would have thought that would be a joke. The next day, the 16th, INEC did that and published the name of somebody who they said Jude Okeke. I don't know how he submitted his name, whether he uploaded his name, or did he comply with any INEC guidelines to bring in that candidate. They published him to the consternation of every Nigerian. Going back to tell you why this is important, Nigerians will know the truth, is that they said Jigawa State High Court judgment and order that compelled INEC to accept Jude Okeke. The judgment was delivered on 30th of June. 30th of June. And they didn't serve INEC this order until 15th of July, a date to the publication. So it looked like somebody was waiting for something. After almost more than 2 weeks, another was obtained to be able to foist this confusion on APGA. And they have done that. Like I posed the first question, why did INEC abandon the leadership of APGA that they have dealt with in the past 2 years? It's a very critical question.
What were you expecting INEC to have done under the circumstance?
And INEC had no business with the so-called Jude Okeke and that court order from Jigawa State High Court. They had no business with that. Because INEC, like Okoye pointed out that day, monitors activities in political parties, and it keeps record of national officers of all political parties in Nigeria. In 2019, APGA had a national convention at Awka, where the tenure of office of the current leaders of the party were renewed. They were re-elected for a second term in office. Remember, I was national chairman of this party for 10 years. And it was when my tenure ended that we organized a convention in 2015 when Oye and his team were elected, you know. And in 2019, 4 years, it required that their tenure needs to be renewed. They wrote INEC that there will be a national convention of APGA on the 31st of May. And they gave INEC the venue of that convention to be Professor Dora Akonili Women Development Center in Awka, in Anambra State. That is the procedure. If you give INEC notice, you must state the time, the date, and the venue of the event. So APGA complied with this, gave them this notice. And on the 31st of May 2019, INEC raised a team of monitors that went to that convention in Awka, where Chief Victor Oye, Labran Mako were re-elected as national chairman and national secretary, along with other national officers of the party. INEC produced a report from there. The monitors that came produced the report, which is also available.
So,
you know. I'm coming. So they did, they monitored it, and since that date, they have been dealing with these leaders of the party. They monitored their election into office from 31st of May. Then I'll also tell you that in 2020, around April 2020, somebody challenged that convention that produced them in a high court in Anambra State.
Is that Edozie Njoku?
Not Edozie Njoku. Edozie Njoku, I'll come to him very shortly. In that judgment of the Anambra State High Court delivered on 18th November 2020, the court determined that the election of these officers were valid and that the National Convention was conducted in accordance with APGA Constitution. The Court of Competent Jurisdiction did this, or rather the court said, and the judgment is there. This judgment is with INEC, the one that was delivered on 18 November 2020 that validated this convention and affirmed these officers as our national officers of the party. Then, suddenly, somebody on 15th of June emerged. You know, I made an allusion to it during that program.
Year?
This year, June, this year, 15th June. Some people gathered somewhere in Abuja. I told you in that program of 25th June that I was getting ready to go to the World Congress, ad hoc World Congress, where we will elect ad hoc delegates for the primary. And I saw a live broadcast where some people were there saying that they were holding a NEC meeting of APGA, you know. So I looked at them, I knew it was one of those things when things come, people are sponsored to come and construct. So I laughed it off and went away. I didn't know that very shortly we'll start hearing the news that APGA now has gotten an acting national chairman, in the person of Jude Okeke, and they make a meeting at that. I'm a member of National Executive Committee of APGA. All the organs of APGA, minus the National Working Committee, I am a member of all of them. The National Convention, I'm a member of APGA's National Convention. National Executive Committee, I am a member of National Executive Committee. You see it. Board of Trustees, I am a member of Board of Trustees. And even at that, as a member of these organs, I'm telling you, I'm a life member by virtue of the fact that I served as National Chairman of APGA. All former National Chairman of APGA and National Secretaries are members of these organs, minus the National Working Committee. You see, I'm a member of the National Caucus. So if there's a meeting of APGA, I should be able to know who convened the meeting. And because I'm a member of those organs I have listed, if there's a NEC meeting, I should be in the NEC meeting. What
if you have been sidelined and you are the only one who
nobody can sideline me. I'm not the only one. If you go to APGA Constitution, you see members of various organs of the party. So for this National Executive Committee we're talking about now, the governor of Anambra State is a member. The deputy governor, all governors elected by the party.
So
through
nobody
the party.
Was in that.
I couldn't recognize anybody. I could only recognize somebody who was reading the text of press conference now on this screen. But Ikechukwu. He was my national youth leader in 2007 when I was national chairman. He dropped off at some point in 2013.
Dropped off to where?
No, he ceased to be because his tenure ended in 2011. Then in 2013, when we had a vacancy, we reappointed him as acting national chairman. And that was where he stopped with us in 2015. So he had ceased to be a member of the National Working Committee of APGA, let alone a member of any other organ of the party.
But he is still a member of APGA.
I wouldn't know. Those who are managing the party today will know whether he's still a member. But what I'm saying is that those people that gathered and said they were holding a NEC meeting were people I have never met in my life. I saw it on screen. I've never met them. This Jude Okeke I'm talking about now, I don't know him. I have never met him. And he has emerged acting national chairman of APGA by order of Jigawa High Court. Let me tell you that this is a problem we have in Nigeria, where people will leave their due diligence in the discharge of their statutory responsibilities and begin to clutch straws, unnecessarily. When INEC was served that order, what INEC would have done would have been to look at APGA Constitution, look at the national officers of APGA that is with them, the list that is with them, and look at that Jude Okeke's name and see if he's there.
And willfully disobey a court order?
No, you are talking about court order now. I've told you that there is another judgment and a court order that has dealt with that issue in November 18, 2020. And that is the order of court that is first in time. That judgment is still subsisting.
What did the order of court say?
It says that Victoria and his executive were validly elected at National Convention of 31st of May 2019. And that they should continue in office and nobody should interfere with their discharge of their duties. Now, from what the Jigawa High Court said, it said that Jude Okeke, from the folklore, because the case they stated before the Jigawa State High Court in Kudu is that Jude Okeke was the deputy national chairman south of APGA through Dozie Njoko, who is claiming that he conducted a convention of APGA on 31st of May 2019 in Owerri, Imo State, where INEC never went. INEC was not aware of this group, and they've been ignoring them since 2019 till date. They've been ignoring Dozie Njoko because at no time has INEC ever recognized Dozie Njoko as national chairman of APGA.
So give us a status of where your candidate, I mean, as produced by the convention you attended,
the primary.
Yes, the primaries that was conducted. What is the status right now?
He's the validly nominated candidate of APGA. Nobody can take it away from him.
No, what I'm saying is, has his name been published by INEC as the validly nominated?
They have not. We have not seen them effect that change of that mischief, because
a name obviously has been published for APGA. Hasn't a name been published for APGA?
There was a name published according to what we saw, that person was submitted by the Judo Keke, who I have told you is not a member of the party like they're saying. But even at that, if Edozie Njoku, who he claims to be his deputy, has not been recognized by INEC for the past 2 years as national chairman, how can his deputy emerge and suspend him and then proceed to go and get a court declaration that is now the national chairman of APGA? And apart from that, it is the same Jigawa High Court that now validated Edozie Njoku's claim of having purportedly conducted a convention in Owerri in 2019. No court had done it for him. So it is a bizarre development where somebody who his principal is not recognized by law, his principal is not recognized by Independent National Electoral Commission, now became the principal, and INEC started dealing with inciting a court order.
Have you had cause to visit INEC's office to table your complaint? Because you posed a very strong question. Why has INEC abandoned the leadership of APGA, which they have been dealing with for the past 2 years?
The leadership of APGA that I know,
yes,
I've been part of in all its activities, is the leadership of Chief Victor Oye. And
so
they have been writing, they've been writing INEC
beyond
series of letters. They have gone there too.
Yes.
I think he explained it on television, if you're listening to him. They've been going there. INEC chose to obey an obnoxious court order from Jigawa State High Court and decided to disobey a judgment, a subsisting final judgment of Anambra State High Court on the same matter that came last year, November. You know, clearly about 6 months after, before that of Jigawa. Why should INEC disobey that judgment and go on to obey an order made by Jigawa State High Court in respect of somebody they did not know? I think the answer is very clear, that INEC is being economical with the truth. When I came here, when we argued the issue of notice for the conduct of ad hoc delegates, I told Okoye here that they were being mischievous. When they now saw that that issue of notice will no longer fly, I think that's how this conspiracy came up again. Get us, even if it's a magistrate court order, that's the one we will obey. And you abandoned an executive. You were part of its election, an executive you've been dealing with up until 15th July, a date to the publication of a list of candidates. Why did they wait for such things to happen? And this judgment of Jigawa State High Court, which we are talking about, in that judgment, Oye, Victor Oye, was not mentioned in any line as having been removed from office. So that court did not order INEC to stop dealing with Victor Oye as the national chairman of APGA.
I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts now. Let's quickly take this to Lagos.
Okay.
Ayo has another guest.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mokwe. Ikechukwu also joins us in this conversation. He is Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. He joins us virtually. Thanks for joining us this morning. And I'm just wondering what you make of all, of the things that you have heard so far. It's just 3 months, a little over 3 months to the elections in November, for the next governor of Anambra State. And the build-up didn't start just yesterday or day before yesterday. It's been a while. What do you make of all of this? Is it confusion or disunity, you want to put it?
Well, it's not confusion, it's not even disunity. I think it boils down to probably the failure of the party to acquire enough cohesion over time. Because all the action that's going on, if you like, call it enemy action, is by individuals who have some grouse. I wouldn't know what that grouse is. But what it shows is that you have within the party forces or interests that think they will be better served by subverting probably the established leadership of the party. And in the process of trying to serve whatever interest they have in mind, everybody went around shopping for court orders, court injunctions, and all manner of restraining orders. And if you look at them, as Victor has pointed out, Victor has pointed out, it's all first. I think quite a number of them boil down to abuse of court process. A number of them boil down to contradictory judgments, which on its own should put the judiciary in the line of fire. And so questions must be raised about the role of INEC in all of this, because if from the records you have established that this is the subsisting and substantive leadership of the party, if, as suggested, a person who was not at any time, who was once known to be a deputy and whose position didn't change, should suddenly emerge as a leader through a process that's yet to be explained, and you decide to deal with him, that's another issue on its own. So APGA is facing a more serious problem than internal contradiction, and I'll tell you why. It used to have more than one state in the southeast. Today there's only one, and if this kind of crisis goes on and leads up to November, several things are likely to happen. Number one, APGA may end up with a factional thing. They may end up not fielding a candidate, and that may actually lead eventually to the demise of the party. I think that if there's enough internal cohesion, people will be more worried about losing the election than about having their candidate. And I think that individuals are focusing on self-interest more than building a party that will win. The party has been in power for quite a number of time, with the incumbent governor an extension of 8 years. This will be the wrong time to lose. And let us know the terrain too. We have within the terrain actors. Of course, PDP is in total disarray. It will be a miracle if they put themselves together. Unless, of course, Obiora Okonkwo is able to solve the problem for them by holding what he's holding at the moment. You forget that Andy Uba is still on the scene. And Andy, you know his methods. Ifeanyi Uba is there too. So APGA needs to get its act together. Court injunctions will not solve the problem. Some people are angry. That anger will not be resolved, but it's now a question of man past man. That's what everybody is doing. Let's see how far it will go. But what it means is that the House is now so thoroughly divided that even if an election were to hold, those who are still angry, even if they end up not having their candidate run, they are not likely to support the candidate of any of the factions. So I think the greater worry for APGA at the moment is, are we even likely to remain a party after this election? If you're talking in the line of advice, it's for them to sit down behind the scene. It eventually will boil down to the men and women sitting down to talk. That, look, we're looking bad in public. What is it that's making you do this? We used to work together. If it's not resolved at that level, court injunctions will not solve any problem. It will further polarize individuals and the party and will lead to a loss in the election itself. That's my initial intervention.
Well, you definitely have a lot more to say about this, Dr. Ikechukwu, because I'm just wondering, I mean, you have talked about a number of things here. You've talked about the predominant role of influence, and you have also, you know, perhaps looked into the crystal ball. Well, it doesn't really need a crystal ball to say that if, you know, this continues, there is the likelihood that APGA might not be able to field the candidate. And this has happened, you know, in this particular Fourth Republic a good number of times, especially for governorship elections. There are many other things to unpack in all of this. That influence thing, could it be some other things in play that one is not looking at? We'll do a little with all of that when we return from this break. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. The conversation continues on the Anambra elections and all of the issues happening within the ranks of APGA. Dr. Ikechukwu is still with us, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. One of the things that came to mind, I mean, from all of the things that you're saying, that realizing what is at stake, could it be that these the divisions we're seeing, the confusion that seems to be in play, is actually some kind of strategy to, you know, from forces beyond APGA to give the opportunity to other political parties. Is this something that is likely, or you think there is no chance of it?
No, I think it's even more than likely, because it's quite possible. I remember we're now dealing with hypothetical situations and possibilities. It's possible that some people may have been advised or funded or encouraged to begin, if you like, internal enemy action, just like what happens, what the federal government sometimes used to do in the past, of dividing labor by getting somebody to set up a faction, or what university administration sometimes do by getting somebody to become an alternative to the union president. So that, I suspect, is one of the issues on the table. And that's why one is a bit concerned that the way it's going, because that confusion is in APGA, that confusion is in PDP, and it would appear you're not hearing anything at all about APC, even though there was the issue of whether actually APC held an election, primaries. But you can see that their problems are far less than the others. And for the Ifeanyi group, there's also another problem. Let's play the scenario. PDP is in confusion. Obiora Okonkwo is very likely, he's fully on ground. Let's not deceive ourselves. He has control, he has access, he played very well. And remember, he's from Central, which is presumed not to be the required zone, the favored zone for the ticket, but he came second and lost by only 4 votes. So that tells you he's very strong. All the party leaders today are meeting with him, even though his Valentine is also on the line. So if you move it over to APGA, you have a sitting governor that trounced all the other parties in the last election. When I say trounced, clobbered them to a state of unconsciousness. APGA won. People may argue about the method used, but my question to them is always, were you not in the same terrain? Why didn't you use the same method? So admit defeat. Now there's a possibility, using the power of incumbency, that the party may retain the position. And if there are other individuals and parties desperate to dislodge APGA and Obiano, there's nothing they will not deploy, especially resources and individuals who are available to be used for it. Now that is a possibility. It is not new. It has been deployed in the past, and that's why I think that APGA has to really up its game. The party is in tatters, and it applies to the others. When I say in tatters, it's not that the leadership is not known or respected, but that there are putative claimants to the position of leader, and they have their own. So even if it's 2 people, each faction is taking, that's APGA -2. Question, is it possible there are other forces? Absolute yes, and is a matter for genuine concern, because there are issues, there are baggages here and there. There may be people who don't want Obiano to be succeeded by whoever he likes. There are people who may have issues with Soludo. I mean, his candidacy had been touted for more than a year. Now it became a reality. So all kinds of scenarios are possible. But on the question of whether it's external forces intervening, the answer is absolute yes. It is a clear and distinct possibility.
Well, I'm sure that my colleague Markwe may have a question for you as well, but before that, let me just ask you this. Now, given this information that may have also been considered by others, I'm just wondering, how significantly do you think those interests of every faction, now there are 3 factions of APGA vying for this post in Anambra State, how significant do you think those interests are, those grievances are, to the effect that the politicians are not even willing to give down to each other in such a seemingly small party as APGA?
Well, first, I'm actually talking to you from Oka. And I've had conversations totally unsolicited, because, you know, I'm not involved in Anambra politics, but I don't know why people think they should always discuss it with me. Now, the question of interest could be at several levels. It could be at the level of ego. Who do they think they are not to reckon with me? I will show them. It could be at the level of, if you like, subversive funding. I've given you money, please make sure that this canopy, they never raise it. And I'll be using all kinds of things, but the objective is for me to do it. I tell you, in terms of external forces, there's sufficient, if you like, incentive for that to happen. Now, within the party, let's assume all the fractions are actually not funded by anybody, not encouraged by anybody. it will mean that they consider their grievance sufficiently strong and their interest, the interest they are pursuing is significant enough for them to do what, in fact, can be described as anti-party activities. Because look at it, a party has chosen a candidate, the substantive leadership. There's an alternative leadership claiming to be the leadership. There's another one that's claiming all kinds of things. And these are individuals who know each other, who have been talking with each other, have been working with each other. It means that there are unresolved personal, policy, funding, or other issues that they consider important enough for them to refuse to listen when spoken to. If it's not that serious, there won't be faction. So it is quite serious. And for some, it may have built up over the years, probably 3 years, probably the entire 8 years of Obiano's leadership, probably 5 years ago, but certainly it's not something that started today. And I believe perhaps conversation may have resolved this, trading of interest, political deals, but now that primaries have taken place, individuals are claiming alternate candidacy and claiming all manner of, even all manner of court reasons, reasons from the court for being the party, now it's become a little intractable. And I think, quite frankly, that the party is in trouble. Not in trouble as a party, that the name doesn't exist, but in trouble in terms of the possibility of winning the election as a united house. If a faction decides to do enemy action, they will still remain in the party, but they will vote against a candidate they do not like if that's the one that elects. That should worry them, as I said earlier.
Well, I do know that when my colleague Ayo talked about factions, Senator Umeh shook his head here that there are no factions. I guess he means there are no factions in APGA. But I'd like to ask you, in the face of all of this, what is the Independent National Electoral Commission supposed to do? I mean, because there's all of these shenanigans are playing out in the court, within the parties. What should INEC be doing?
Okay, two things. First, briefly on what Victor said about factions. In point of fact, if I claim to be running a faction, and in law and according to the constitution of the party, my reason for making that claim doesn't make sense. Somebody can correctly say, no, there's no faction, they are just claims. So I can understand his perspective. Now, in the case of INEC, remember that INEC is a regulatory agency within a legal framework, a legal or constitutional framework that requires you to obey certain orders. So if you get an order from a court, you have to comply with it. Now the concern here, and I share that concern, is that there seems to be insufficient explanation for INEC's apparent preference in terms of which court order to obey. And that's the point Victor is making. That if some of the facts it has laid out are the way they actually are, why would INEC prefer court order A in place instead of B? So I'm a bit concerned about that. And looking at real politics, it is possible that there are individuals who have enough interest, who have secured loyalties and commitments with a cascade from the federal down to the states, that they are actually influencing the preferences of some institutions of state. Now, that is not saying anything one way or another about whether INEC is involved in this, because if you notice, INEC has been, well, my view, INEC has been improving consistently, and under Mahmoud, you can't say it's been performing too badly, but sometimes it's blamed for the confusion arising from other institutions of state. My take regarding Anambra and all the injunctions is that purely at a personal level, I do not quite understand why INEC would prefer a court order that's guiding it with reference to APGA as against other subsisting court orders from courts of coordinate jurisdiction and the rest of it. It is from that angle that somebody may be tempted to question the neutrality or the inexplicable inexplicability of the kind of response coming from INEC at the moment. But INEC did not initiate any court injunctions. It is not against APGA or APGA. It is supposed to obey orders, and that's what it has done. The other element from the angle of real politics is the question raised. Why obey order A instead of B? We think there is not enough reason to that. Now, that could be a matter of perspective, and I have no opinion on that, but certainly questions can be raised in that regard.
I'm looking at the visuals right there. I mean, of the other primaries that was conducted. I'm bringing it back here to Abuja, Dr. Ikechukwu. And I'm saying that the people who conducted the primaries, which you find very objectionable, are wearing the outfit of APGA, with the now leader of APGA, the recognized leader, at least at the state level.
Yes.
One state that you have, Willie Obiano's face
as the leader
on
of the party.
So there'll be questions. I mean, it obviously means that they recognize his leadership. If that is the case, has the leader of, the leadership of APGA at that level, has he reached out to them to say, if you're doing this, for our party and in the name of our party, and he doesn't recognize them either, has there been some effort at rapprochement? Because this eventually would affect the chances of your party come November the 6th.
Well, thank you very much. Your question is very apt. One will always want to look for means of bringing people together when they are going astray. For the fact that you saw them in that primary wearing an apparel bearing Governor Obiano's face and Dim Chukwemeka Odumegwu, they wore it and went to somewhere else to organize a primary. There was a primary before this, 23rd of June. Governor Obiano was there. I was there. So many statutory delegates of APGA, like National Assembly members and members of Board of Trustees, were there. We voted where Soludo was nominated. In this primary you are looking at, there's nobody there. The state chairman of the party, the executive of the state apparatus of the party, and local government chairman, nobody was there. So how can you now
come? There was nobody there.
There are human beings. I'm talking about recognized officers of the party. Because Jude Okeke, who is saying he conducted a primary in Anambra, has no parallel structure of APGA in Anambra State. No state executive, no local government executive, no ward executive, except maybe supporters of his candidate that came to that podium, wearing this apparel. This apparel is everywhere in Anambra State. But going back to some of the issues raised by my brother Ikechukwu, let me tell you, there is no way you can eliminate people who will be aggrieved in a political party or people who may want to do something to stop what is the proper thing.
No, the question
they will be there.
So for them to wear this outfit,
yes,
I mean, of course, they're trying to also confer
they would have submitted themselves
on what they're doing.
No, they are conscious of what they're doing. Yes, correct.
So, to confess some legitimacy on it, if that's what they're doing, I mean, and that's what they're telling you, that they are bona fide members of APGA. The question I'm asking is whether the leadership, I mean, as one on the apparel which they donned.
Yes.
Has reached out to them to say, if truly you're one of us and you're a part of us, why don't we do this together?
The governor has done everything he could do as the leader of the party. He set up a peace, reconciliation and outreach committee chaired by my humble self. I'm the chairman of that committee. And we have been calling people to come. Even all the people that contested the primary, they had appeared before us. Then those who were disqualified.
When was that?
No, we were inaugurated on the 8th of July. We are still sitting. We have not even finished. We are still in the process, seeing people. We invited the aspirants that were not cleared during the party screening. Some came. The one that is now nominated by Jude Okeke did not come. We reached out. I even spoke with him nearly 2 hours to submit himself to peaceful dialogue. When he was going out to run for this election, he came to me and I gave him proper advice, which he didn't take. He's entitled to his own decision.
So you're aware that people must have felt aggrieved about
if you don't get something you want, the first tendency is to be aggrieved.
Yeah, so
the people
that have been thrown up as a result of these processes, they are not unknown members of APGA.
No, they are members of, some of them are in the state, yes, but the leadership that emerged, I don't know the person. I don't know the person. So how will somebody come to me and tell me that the party I led for 10 years as chairman, and I've been involved in its operation since 2002, that I will not know somebody who emerged as acting national chairman. Even the people that are going with Jude Okeke today, they knew the correct leadership of APGA. His nominated candidate purchased his form to run for this governorship through Victor Oye's led executive. He went there and purchased the form, paid 22 million. He went to the screening, he was not cleared. And he started this dissident action. So it's not as if he doesn't know who the chairman of APGA is, the correct leadership. It was through this correct leadership of APGA that he went to the House of Reps in 2019. So all these things we are seeing is because people will now start discussing what they are reading. They don't exist. As to the issue of APGA being in tatters, with due respect to my brother, I take exception to that word that APGA is in tatters. APGA is being challenged, you know, and it's a normal political action, you know. The important thing is that the INEC should be able to put forward the right candidate nominated by the party and allow the people of Anambra to decide who goes ahead. If you list Soludo tomorrow, that's what they're afraid of. If you list Soludo tomorrow as a candidate of APGA, the election is won. They're aware of it. My brother also alluded to people who are instigating this crisis because they don't want APGA to win. He danced around it, but he knew what he was talking about. This is not new in APGA. In 2009, you remember that Morrissey vowed that P2B will not contest 2010 governorship election through APGA. I was in all the courtrooms with the then INEC chairman, and we had to overpower him to submit to the rule of law, where the former chairman he was trying to add to nominate a candidate. You know, a court had affirmed his expulsion from the party. He disregarded it. We took it very hotly with him, and eventually he caved in. That's how P2B contested. This time around, they know what they're doing. APGA is entrenched in Anambra State. They've been there for 16 years and they've performed. The governor just added an international airport there. So they're afraid that once you go to an election with APGA in Anambra State, you will lose. So the strategy is to disorganize the party, to weaken it. But that is in the eyes of, in the thinking of the public. You know, that this thing is happening now, that people are beginning to analyze, like my friend, that APGA is in tatters. Let's have our candidate that we nominated. Leave the rest to us. It's the party I've been part of.
Well, you say the governor has performed, he's built an airport, but there are reports that he's owing doctors, resident doctors, 8 months' salary in Anambra State.
That is not that's not verified.
That is verified. No, that's according to the National Association of Resident Doctors.
Please, you see, when elections come, people are sponsored to go to the street and begin to say all kinds of things.
The National Association of
Obiano is known to be a governor. I'm coming.
Group that has been sponsored. They have been saying this
they
for
may
a
have
while.
an issue with the government, not that they were not paid. They may have an issue with government. If you get there now, the issue may be leave allowance and things like that. Obiano is reputed to be paying salaries. He's called an alert governor. Every 24th or 25th of every month, every civil servant in Anambra State gets his pay from 2014 till date.
Oh, let us hope.
So if they are saying it to throw dust, I can tell you if you go deep into it, the issues will be different. It's not as they are claiming. Well, but be that as it may, the cardinal issue for us now is for the INEC to be guided by the rule of law. The issue of going to take a stranger and aid him to put a candidate in APGA, citing a court order that is an invalid court order. Let me describe that order as invalid court order. Because the matter is, the judgment has been appealed.
We're totally out of time. I'm sure that INEC, will be listening. I'm sure they will have someone who certainly has been detailed to monitor what it is that people
what is happening is that
we have to go now. We're totally out of time. We're totally out of time, Senator Victor Umeh. We have to thank you for your submissions.
Let INEC do the right thing.
Yes.
And restore the candidate the party nominated, because this thing will fail. By the Court of Appeal, when they go through it, this Jigawa judgment will be turned to shreds.
We will keep our eyes on the ball, Senator Victor Umeh. We will keep our eyes on the ball, and we will see how matters eventually proceed ahead of the November the 6th governorship elections in Anambra State. We have been speaking with Senator Victor Umeh, who is the former national chairman of the All Progressives Grand Alliance. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Edit this morning.
Thank you. That's the much the time permits. But I tell you, Soludo will contest the election.
It's over now to
and APGA will win resoundingly. We are still there.
Thank you, Mark. The issues are just not going to go away. One of the questions that I would like to, well, Dr. Ikechukwu, let me just put that question to you. I mean, all that Senator Umeh is asking for is that INEC should field a specific candidate. How do you think, how bright are the chances of the party if INEC should field the candidates being proposed by Senator Umeh without the issues of consensus not being fully and substantively addressed?
Of course, we must put on record that Soludo is a good candidate in his own right. You make it go. Anambra is my state. I want a good government. But stepping forth as a candidate is different from winning an election. With all no matter how strong a lion is, if you have hyenas biting it on all sides, you can't kill all of them at once. It will get. It is also true that INEC APGA has the advantage of incumbency, but directly to your question, there are likely to be challenges because of these internal contradictions. Now, that doesn't mean APGA will lose, because APGA may also have some trick up its sleeve that people are not aware of, but it just raises the odds that you have a good candidate, but there's some division within the House. No matter how much you try to dismiss it or say it doesn't matter, the truth is that it matters. The truth is that it's likely to deny you 1 or 2 votes. The truth is that it's also likely to affect general perception of your position as a party. And that might lead to loss of election. Whether it will actually lead to that is to be determined by the contest itself. So nobody can ab initio assert with absolute certainty that APGA will win or lose. No, that will be determined by the election itself. But let's have it on record. A preferred candidate Victor is talking about is a good candidate. In his own right, one would like to see him contest with other good candidates from other parties, because if either of the good candidates win, it is good governance and development for the state, which is what we want. But we cannot off the cuff say that there will be no impact. No, there will be serious impact arising from these divisions. And the sooner the party resolves it, the better. It's one thing to declare confidently that you're not challenged. Is another. There's nothing more dangerous than a rat in a food store. A rat is very small, but it can do a lot of damage to your store. That is the worry. APGA should worry about rats. End of story.
There is something that you also said the other time, and I just want to, you to expatiate a little further on that. You have talked about the fact that, those other political parties also have their own issues. So, I mean, if all the parties are having issues, I mean, doesn't that in any way also raise the chances of this political party being the strongest in the state, even though it's having its own issues?
Well, I think he's the incumbent. I don't know whether that translates into being the strongest when it comes to a new election. It's a sitting duck situation that we have now. The governor has second tenure has ended, so they are contesting all the parties. PDP in particular has very slim chance, quite frankly, in my view. No matter what they choose to say, both at the national and state level, their chances are close to nothing in Anambra State unless they resolve it. And I don't think, I may be mistaken, not being involved in the main engine room, but if what we are seeing is anything to go by, there's a delusional element on the part of some of the existing Anambra factions of the party, who keep saying we shall see what will happen, we are working on it, the Lord is on our side. You see, you must not mistake a political contest for a prayer meeting, and I think that's what some people are working with. There is strong contest. Obioro Okonkwo is a force to reckon with. Don't kid yourself. Ekunife, who contested from the central, which was not a favor, came third. Yes, people are joining forces with Paul, who himself is a wonderful candidate, I would love. But this battle has to be won first before you can talk about the goodness of the person who will be governor. And it doesn't seem to me they are doing enough. So all of them considered, a party that might just ambush everybody during the night, as some of the principal actors they are known to do, might turn out to be either APC, not because APC is strong, but because he might use other means, in quote, or Ifan Yoba and his party. People shouldn't deceive themselves. These are clear and distinct possibilities. PDP, APGA, They have serious issues. Probably PDP much more than APGA. But to use that to then say that, okay, because other parties have problems, that increases APGA's chances. No, it would be dangerous to assume that. I would rather fix my leaking roof than allow it and say that, well, others have leaking roofs, so they may be soaked more by the rain than myself. No, that's not going to work. Not in
Well, those are valid points that you have raised. I mean, coupled with also the opportunity to go to courts, the role of the judiciary and the electoral umpire itself, and which I've also referenced. But we have to thank you for now, Dr. Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Thank you so much for your time and your perspectives today.
Thank you.
Well, there is more to come, and we'll go to it right away.